The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters for this Tuesday, April the 14th, here on April 14th, 2026, here on NOK Network. And this is a video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported in mainstream media. And shout out to the guys in Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario. They're just a few hours north of me here. For the awesome intro track, originally recorded by the Moody Blues with some customized changes for our show. And I'm joined by my amazing joint hosts, Tara Simpson, and along with the one and only Bufo Alvarez. And hello, Tara, and hello, Bufo.
Well, hello, Ron. Hobbies is off today, so Ron is sitting in for him today, which is fantastic. And I'd like to take a minute to introduce Bufo. He is our Sonoran Desert Toad, or Colorado Mud Toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And well, that sounds like great fun. Park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick that toad.
Right? Don't lick that toad. And there's Bufo right there. So don't lick the toad, right?
Right. So, sustainable harvesting, you know.
Right. So so I am filling in for Hobbies today. And so I think it's going to be a great show. Bufo's picked out some great stories. And I think we should just get right straight at it. Because one of our stories, the second half, is a little longer, but I want to be able to get those other two little stories we have in the end if we can. If we don't, there's no harm done. But this first story here is really, really interesting, I find. And it comes from McGill McGill.ca, which I guess is McGill University. Largest ever study of psychedelics could help advance their use in treating mental health disorders. Researchers have discovered that despite different chemistries, 5 psychedelic compounds affect the brain in 2 similar ways. And this was published on April the 7th. And I'm trying to see the author. I don't really see an author, so I'm not sure who wrote it, but it was published on the 7th of this year, April 7th of this year, rather. Scientists have demonstrated for the first time that several psychedelic drugs, including psilocybin, LSD, mescaline, DMT, and ayahuasca, produce a common pattern of brain activity despite their distinct chemistries. An international consortium led by a McGill University researcher pooled brain imaging data from labs across 5 countries, creating the largest study of its kind to date. The findings, published in Nature Medicine, there's a clickable link there, could help guide the design of future treatments for mental health disorders. There's a quote here saying, "This is a breakthrough in how we think about psychedelic drugs," said senior author Danilo Bezodok, associate professor in McGill's Department of Biomedical Engineering in Canada, CIFAR, CIFAR, Artificial Intelligence Chair at MILA. For the first time, we show there's a common denominator among drugs that we currently consider completely separate.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
It is.
Two measurable changes in the brain. While different psychedelics have shown to benefit some mental health conditions, how they produce similar effects despite their chemical differences remains a mystery. The meta-analysis identified two consistent neural effects across 5 of the most common drugs. Normally, each brain system communicates strongly within itself, maintaining tight, organized networks. The researchers found that under the influence of psychedelics, these connections weaken, making the network less rigidly structured. The second neural effect is that psychedelics increase communication between different brain networks, allowing signals to cross boundaries that are usually separate. This crosstalk may help explain the hallucinations and other unusual thoughts, sensations, and perceptions people report during psychedelic experience.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're beginning to understand how these psychedelics actually work in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
We know what they do, how that actually happens. We're learning more and more all the time, and that's what happens when you open up laws and regulations for more research. And the story goes on here to say an X-ray of global psychedelic research. The meta-analysis combined results from 11 data sites analyzing more than 500 brain imaging sessions from 267 participants. Psychedelic neuroscience studies are typically small, often limited to 10 to 30 participants because of high costs and strict regulations. Studying 5 different psychedelics in a single experiment would be nearly impossible, the authors wrote. This approach gives us an X-ray view of the entire research community, said Bazdock. I apologize if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, but it is what it is.
Yeah. The thawing of psychedelic research winter. Interest in psychedelics for mental health treatment has surged in recent years, fueled in part by advances in brain imaging technology. The revival follows what authors call the psychedelic research winter of the 1970s, when studies were limited by criminalization and associations with counterculture. Many drug therapies for depression, for example, have changed little over the past decade. Psychedelics may represent the most promising shift in mental health treatment since the 1980s, said Bazdock. He added that as researchers in this emerging field still face logistical hurdles, the results provide a yardstick against which future studies can be measured and may help move the needle towards loosening strict regulations. And then there's a clickable link about the study below. So I would imagine it goes a little more in depth there.
Right. So that is really interesting that they're finding out more about how and what these different psychedelics actually do, and that it's kind of neat that they're finding that there's a common denominator in them, even though they're completely separate, different chemical compounds.
Right? Yeah, they still do similar actions within the brain by loosening the rigidity and allowing the brain to connect to different pathways that probably aren't connecting otherwise. So how that affects us long term would be interesting as well.
Yeah. Only time will tell on that.
Absolutely.
So anyways, we're going to move over to our next story here. And do you mind starting this one off for us?
For sure. So this one is coming to us from cbsnews.com. Minnesota lawmakers looking to decriminalize psilocybin mushrooms create therapeutic use program, by Esme Murphy on April 11th of this year. Psychedelic mushrooms were widely known as recreational and illegal drugs in the 60s and 70s. Now, 2 bills at the Minnesota State Capitol would make it easier to access the fungi. One of the bills would create a pilot program for psychedelics or psilocybin mushrooms to be used in medicine for the treatment of mental health conditions like post-traumatic stress disorder and severe depression. The other bill would decriminalize the substance, removing the current legal penalties that exist for anyone caught with some. Both bills are recommendations from Minnesota's Psychedelic Medicine Task Force. Psilocybin has been showing incredible promise as treatment for many mental health conditions. Democratic State Senator Claire Umo Verbetten said. Verbetten introduced her bill at the Senate Judiciary Committee, and there were a lot of questions. Oh, we're just decriminalizing it? And that's a pretty gigantic step, Republican State Senator Michael Cruen said. There was also an acknowledgement from Senator Judy Seeberger that people need more therapies for mental illness. Treatment-resistant depression is a devastating illness. Devastating, Seeberger said. Dr. Jessica Nielsen, an adjunct professor at the University of Minnesota, is the chair of the task force. Mental health issues are a huge problem, and they're getting worse, and we don't have enough tools to meet that moment, Nielsen said. 3 other states, Colorado, New Mexico, and Oregon, have legalized psilocybin mushrooms for therapeutic use. Oh, I didn't realize it was this short. I'm just going to finish this last sentence.
That's fine. That's fine.
It's unlikely the 2 bills will pass the Minnesota legislature this year, but it's important to remember that bills on medical marijuana and recreational marijuana were debated in the Capitol for over 10 years before lawmakers legalized them. And that's true. I mean, we've been fighting a long time for natural medicine, so it may take a little longer on this front, but at least things are happening in the States, more so than you see here in Canada.
Right. And we've been fighting, we've been fighting for a long time for natural medicine. I say we've been fighting for a long time to gain access to the original medicine.
Yes.
It's not, and we use the term alternative medicine. No, it's the original medicine. It's what was used before for years, many centuries.
Right, before pharma got their hands on that and then kind of twisted it and tweaked it and added a few things here and there and called it their own.
Right. So anyways, we'll be following up on stuff happening in Minnesota, I'm sure, as time progresses there. So we're going to move on over to our next story here. And we're actually getting a little bit ahead of time here. These stories were a little bit shorter than I realized, but we're all good. This next story is coming to us from Marijuana Moment. Virginia governor signs bills to automatically legalize psilocybin, but there's a little sticking point on here. Following federal approval of the psychedelic. So yeah, they've agreed to legalize it, but only upon approval of the psychedelic from the federal government. And this is published by Tom Edwell on April the 8th. Virginia's governor has signed a pair of bills that will legalize a form of psilocybin under state law if and when the psychedelic is approved by federal officials. There's a quote here. Upon approval by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, of a formulation of psilocybin designed to be administered by a healthcare professional in a healthcare setting, the Board of Pharmacy shall reschedule such formulation of psilocybin consistent with federal scheduling changes and procedures under state law. The legislation signed on Monday by Governor Abigail Spanberger, Democrat, says. Under HB 1347 from Delegate Laura Jane Cohen, also a Democrat, and SB 379 from Senator Jennifer Boysko, also a Democrat. The state action would need to occur at the board's next quarterly meeting following the expiration of 30 days from publication in the Federal Register of a final or interim final order or rule designating any formulation of psilocybin that has been approved by the FDA as a controlled substance. At the federal level, Health and Human Services, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. said recently that the Trump administration is very anxious to create a pathway for access to psychedelics therapy, and there's a clickable link there, and that top officials across federal agencies want to get it out to the public as quickly as possible. In an interview on the Joe, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to do this one paragraph here. In an interview on the Joe Rogan Experience in February, Kennedy said he's confident we're going to get it done with plans to develop and finalize rules that would enable patients with conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder and depression to access psychedelic substances like psilocybin and MDMA in a very controlled setting.
Yeah, so finally we're seeing some action down there. And I really like, for all that people complain about the US and some of their goings-ons, I really like that Kennedy is looking at natural therapies as a legit medical use, as well as many other things that he's changing down there in that regards, as far as health and wellness and just his knowledge. I mean, he's doing the research himself rather than spewing propaganda like the rest of some of the political figures around the world, right? So it's really cool to see that things are starting to happen there. So in an interview with Joe Rogan Experience in February, did you read that already?
Yeah, we're at everybody in my agency.
Everybody in my agency is very anxious to get a rule out there that will allow these kinds of studies and will allow access for under therapeutic settings for the military soldiers who have suffered these injuries to get access to these products, said HHS Secretary. We're working through that process now. We're all working on it and trying to make it happen. I think we're going to get it done, he said. Last June, Kennedy said his agency is absolutely committed to expanding research on the benefits of psychedelic therapy, and alongside of the head of FDA is aiming to provide legal access to such substances for military veterans within 12 months. In Virginia, meanwhile, Spanberger's approval of psychedelic reform comes as she faces a Monday deadline to take action on a number of cannabis-related bills. Those include measures to legalize recreational cannabis sales, provide resentencing relief for people with past convictions, protect the parental rights of consumers, allow patients to access medical marijuana in hospitals, and change delivery and labeling rules that provide for enforcement against illegal sales of cannabis products. In anticipation of the launch of recreational marijuana sales, which Spanberger endorses. During her election campaign last year, Virginia's government jobs site was recently updated with a list featuring nearly a dozen openings for cannabis regulatory positions. Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. This is Virginia.
Yeah.
Virginia.
And they're like a pretty heavy prohibition state, right? That's been the way of it. And they're even opening the doors to, military veterans, at least. That's a start, because they're some of the most impacted with mental health issues and traumatic brain injuries in the world, are our military and first responders. And, why not allow them the access? If nothing else has happened for them with traditional treatment, and most of them, that's the case, we need to look at this.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. So I like where things are going with regards to access to the psychedelics for medicine. But I think it could go much, much quicker.
It could. Because I
But
mean, this research has been being done outside of mainstream by people like yourself and
yeah,
myself and military veterans that have already had psychedelic experiences that are speaking up and being proponents for this because it
yeah,
worked for them. So, I mean, the research has been done, just maybe not in a clinical setting with, lab rats and all sorts of other things, right? But we know that
right.
it's
But you know
working.
what? Exactly. You know what's interesting, and I sure hope that they're going to do that with the psychedelics too. Is with I know in the U.S. with regards to the cannabis rescheduling and stuff, they
Mhm.
are in the gathering of information from people with the positives and stuff of cannabis
Mhm.
utilized as medicine. They are actually taking in account of people's anecdotal evidence. They're taking in account of people's personal stories
Yes.
on this, not just what the studies are saying in a clinical lab setting. They're
Right.
taking what people are saying at face value. People such as yourself and myself, where we were on a whole slew of different medications, pharmaceuticals, and all that, like more than 20 each day.
Yeah.
And I'm on nothing. I'm on nothing other
Yeah.
than cannabis and utilizing mushrooms when I can.
Yeah, exactly. And
There's
that's a
all of that.
huge testament to what it can do if it works out well for yourself and for myself and dozens and dozens of other people we know in this realm already. What's the
Yep.
harm being done? I haven't had any harm from cannabis or psychedelic mushrooms. Um, Again,
Exactly.
utilizing them as medicine for the right reasons makes all the difference, I think, and
Yep.
having the knowledge that we have. So why is it that they're dragging their heels and it's all about safety when we've proven it's safe? I mean, it's safe and
Yep. I'll
effective.
I'll tell you right now, all the pills I was on, 23 pills a day, it
Made me
was
sick.
not safe. It was I
No.
was not, and be yet according to the system, I was.
Yep, because it was all legally prescribed.
Yep.
I I look back at the time in my life where I was on 29 pharmaceuticals all at once, morning, noon, and
Yep.
night, handfuls of pills. Didn't know whether I was coming or going. Was at
Same
work
here.
taking in prescriptions because I worked in a pharmacy, and falling asleep in front of my customers and catching myself.
Yep.
But that's okay because it was all legally prescribed. So it's okay if and I was driving like that and taking care of my
Same here.
family,
Yep.
and trying to have quality of life. And I had none of that. I
Yep.
don't remember a lot of that time, I think, because I was so doped up. And
Yep.
now I'm much more level-headed and productive and not in
And
any
present,
greater pain off the pharmaceuticals than on them.
right?
So again, for me, I mean, my liver's not being harmed. My central nervous system was actually being affected by the amount of medication I was putting into my system to the
Yep.
point that it was affecting my swallow reflex. So
Yep.
I couldn't swallow without choking, 20 or 30 times a day because it was suppressing my central nervous system in a way
Yep.
that was creating havoc on my system. I've
But
never
that's safe.
experienced that
That's safe.
since.
That's safe. That's safe though,
But
right?
that's safe. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Safe and effective, even though it didn't solve any of my problems and created many, many more.
Yep.
Um, that's the way we
Yep.
look at things in society. And that needs to change. Patients like myself, had I not done the research that I did, I might not be here today. Right. So, do your own
I know I
research.
wouldn't be. I
No,
know for sure for a fact I wouldn't be.
no,
And
no. And that's the
I
sad
know
reality.
that,
And
but that's that. Yeah.
right. And I
Yeah.
mean, we didn't wait for permission. We just went ahead and did our own research and found our own substances and got it under control doing our own research because we didn't have
Yep.
doctor support. My doctor is not a marijuana proponent. She doesn't believe in it. So I doubt that she would consider psychedelic mushrooms for depression and anxiety and migraine treatment a suitable alternative either. Though I have made it very clear to my GP that I do these things and this works for me. And that's why she's never had to write me a prescription for things. In fact, I've gotten off my prescriptions. So really, she's just there for paperwork and, the odd sniffle if you can get in to see her. And again, I have to be pretty sick to go see a doctor. So
exactly.
Yeah, like deathbed.
But like I said, it's nice seeing these advancements and these discussions happening and laws changing. And like I said, though, I just wish it could happen quicker, but you can't undo 100 years of prohibition in just a matter of months. It takes time.
No, exactly.
So anyways, I think we've come to that time of the show here. Where's my lines? Here we are. That's the end of our first 3 stories. We've got another story coming up after the break. That one might take us a good part through the second half of the show, but it's a really, really great story following someone's own journey on using psychedelics, mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms in particular, and doing away with what's legal and going out and getting the medicine and it works. So right now, though, it is medication time for us.
That's great. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our amazing sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles UFO has chosen making mainstream media news.
That's right. It's time to pay some bills, folks. Nope, that's your line. We'll be back in just a few minutes, folks, here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network. I need to medicate, I think. Anyway, we'll be back in 4 minutes and 20 seconds, folks, with more. Cheers.
Dirty Dave, award-winning cultivator for over 4 decades. Dirty Dave, prized genetics fueled by advanced nutrients, original OG organics. Dirty Dave, award-winning products available at these fine establishments. Ask your shop to carry Dirty Dave. Contact us at dirtiesdoggies@gmail.com.
Join us for NOK Network monthly specials, 12 months a year, movie nights, spotlights on entertainment, and live on location coverage. Stay up to date about upcoming programming by subscribing to NOK Network on Rumble, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Facebook. Check out our webpage at www.noknetwork.com.
Hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimator Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyendinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dab make the homies all dip set.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram.
Smoke Signals,
Go ahead,
Tyendinaga.
hold it in, feel it in your wrist.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Check us out in Tyendinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyendinaga. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Now we get back to the show.
And welcome back. We're back from our medication session live on Psychedelic Reporters here on NOK Network.
That's right. And we have another set of stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelics medicine. So let's get at it. And our next story here is a really cool one. It's a shame that this person had to go this route. But at least they found a route to get their medication. This story is coming to us from the CBC, which is also nice to see. This stuff coming out in legacy media, where just a lot of your general public is seeing this stuff rather than it being a psychedelics focused media outlet. This is something that just everybody's going to see. And it says here, psychedelics helped him deal with terminal illness anxiety, but getting them was a long, strange trip. 75-year-old with terminal disease used illegal magic mushrooms after Health Canada denied him legal access. And we see this time and time again, where Health Canada is denying people legal access to psychedelics, which most likely will benefit from this person and certainly not harm them. But for some reason, they're denying access.
Right. And we do have a legal access program through Health Canada for these types of patients, but yet they're being denied, which I don't understand. These people are end of life. What harm is this going to do to them that is going to be a long-term issue for someone who is dying?
See, here's the thing that I think Canada's missing the boat on. They missed the boat with cannabis for medical cannabis, because we've had medical cannabis for about a quarter century now, and it's still not classified as medicine. We get an authorization to use, and even from our doctor, and even then Health Canada can deny that request, that authorization from the doctor for whatever reason.
Right.
With psychedelics, they could be through the special access program on the psychedelics. They could be doing a research study on this, on piggybacked on this through everyone who is going through that program. But
Absolutely.
Yet they're missing out on all of that.
I know. It's sad. It's really sad.
Crazy, because the information's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there. But yet they're like, no, we don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, I don't understand it other than it's money, right? They can't make money off of people being well. So why would they want people to be well?
Right.
Exactly. And until they can standardize dose it so that they can pharmaceutical the hell out of it and make money off of it, I don't think they want us to have access to it.
Right. And some of the horror stories I've heard from people personally, not just stuff I've seen written on the internet, people I personally know who have said, who they've denied doing, they turned down radiation and chemo, and they chose to do natural medicines first and only, cannabis, psychedelics, whether it be psilocybin or other psychedelic medicines or other natural medicines. The treatment or non-treatment that they get from the from the cancer centers, and that is deplorable.
Absolutely. Because they're not going along with the narrative, right?
Exactly. They're not making them money.
Right. The hospital doesn't get a payment if you're using psychedelics at home, but they get payment if you come in for chemo or radiation or even a talk therapy session, right? But they don't get paid if you're doing this on your own in any way, because there's not a billable code for them to put in the system.
Exactly. And to go in for like a scan, if you're not utilizing chemo or radiation or both, it's very hard to get them to do a scan for you.
Yes. Because they don't believe it works.
Because you've got nothing to do with us. You're not following anything of our protocol. So our machines are used by people who follow our protocol.
Right.
Get denied scans in our healthcare system.
Right.
And this is multiple different provinces.
I know. It's absolutely disgusting.
Anyways, I want to get to this story. If it takes up the whole rest of the second segment of the show, I don't care, because this is what gets the word out there. This is what gets people talking. This is how you affect change. The story was written by Jennifer Warren on April the 7th, and it was updated, I guess, later that day. Anyways, here's the gentleman. I would assume that is his wife. Susan and Pete Pearson wanted to find a way to help ease the end-of-life distress Pete was experiencing with living with a terminal lung disease. He wanted to try psilocybin to see if it could help, but applying for legal access through Health Canada took 9 months and ended with a denial. So he took the trip on his own. And there is more information on this. I guess a online thing to listen to called White Coat Black Art, Magic for End of Life Distress. Hear more from Pete and Susan Pearson's son, Dr. Blake Pearson, and psilocybin researcher Dr. Joshua Rosenblatt in this 2-part series. So I'm going to have a listen to this probably later on today as I'm buzzing around doing some work. Listen to what that has to say. Anyways, the story here goes on here to say Pete Pearson had 3 reasons for trying psilocybin or magic mushrooms for the first time at age 75. There's a quote here saying, "I hope it will keep me from losing my mind," he told CBC's White Coat Black Art. "I hope it will keep me from being a complete jerk to everybody and being so hard on Susie," his wife. Pete had been diagnosed with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, or IPF, a progressive lung disease that makes it difficult to breathe. The average survival prognosis is 3 to 5 years, and he'd already passed that. Now, the physical limitations were triggering a toxic stew of anxiety, frustration, and depression known as end-of-life distress. There's a quote here from him saying, "I feel so useless," he told CBC's Dr. Brian Goldman when they first spoke in October 2024. So, on January 3rd, 2026, at about 11 a.m., isn't it amazing? People remember where they are, what they were doing, the exact time of the moment that changed their life, that they decided that they were taking control of their healthcare.
Yes.
Right? For myself, I know exactly where I was. I can't remember the exact date and time, but I know exactly where I was in my house. That moment of clarity, which happened to be during a psychotic break from the hydromorph I had been on, where I realized it was the pills that were messing me up. And
yes.
From that point forward, it was just one step in front of the other to where I am today.
I hear you. I have goosebumps because I too have a story similar, right?
And I know Kim does as well.
Yeah.
Does as well.
Yeah.
Kim is Kim Cooper, the owner and creator of NOK Network here. Advocate for many, many years for cannabis and psychedelics and other natural medicines. Anyways, so January 3rd, 2026. So this is just recent. At about 11 a.m., Pete drank a tea containing 5 grams, of natural psilocybin. He stretched out on the hide-a bed in the front room of his house in Wardtown, Ontario, facing the St. Clair River. That's an awesome picture. 8 hours later, he emerged from his psychedelic trip with a new lease on the time he has left. There's a quote here saying, "I cannot believe how much my outlook on life has changed. And the anxiety, it's gone." But that complete turnaround, as Pete described it, happened only after a futile attempt to access psilocybin legally through Health Canada, a process that lasted the better of a year and caused Pete's already debilitating anxiety to go through the roof. In the end, he got psilocybin illegally for about $40.
Right?
Like
$40 to change his life. I mean, that's epic.
To quote the great Jack Kungle,
yes,
with regards to utilizing cannabis for and psilocybin, natural medicines to clear his cancer, and he's still living on today in retirement now. Well-earned retirement. He said in his Jack's, if you want to see it, what is it? Jack's Garage. Jack's Garage on YouTube, free to watch. A must see. But what has he said? I would rather be illegally alive than legally dead.
Exactly. And for $40, again, you wonder why Health Canada isn't interested in fixing us. $40 is nothing to them, right? That's not money.
Right. And
this man is now better than he was before he spent that $40.
Right. This is just one trip.
Yeah.
One dose of 5 grams. And that's not a very small dose, by the way.
No, that's what we call a hero dose. Good on him at 75 for going for the gusto. Yeah. But amazing that it worked for him and one treatment.
Right.
Yeah. A painful path to psychedelics. By the summer of 2024, Pete had been living with IPF for going on 6 years. The more he had to fight for every breath, the less he could do things that gave his life meaning, like spending time with his kids and grandkids. Blake Pearson, himself a family doctor, says while his dad's shortness of breath itself is quite distressing, that when layered with the anxiety, it was really getting out of control. Pete had read about psilocybin and thought it might help. Through that summer, he and Blake worked with his family doctor to apply for legal access to psilocybin through Health Canada's Special Access Program, which grants healthcare providers access to drugs that aren't otherwise approved in the country when conventional treatments have failed or aren't suitable. They weren't prepared for how erroneous the application process would be, but they thought he'd be approved after the SAP application was filed in October of 2024. He even began sessions with a psychotherapist trained in psilocybin-assisted therapy, in which the psychedelic trip is contextualized before and after to give the experience more impact. Pete hoped his trip would happen with Health Canada's approval in early 2025. Waiting in vain. Instead, after multiple backs and forths with the agency, Pete and his doctor were sent a 14-page letter of denial in July of 2025.
Jeez.
Pete shared the letter with CBC. Health Canada's main reason for its decision were that the request does not meet SAP's criteria for emergency treatment, and that several marketed conventional or other therapeutic alternatives remained available. But Pete had already tried at least 3 different medications for depression and anxiety, as well as psychotherapy and meditation, all of which were documented in the SAP's application. My interpretation of the 14 pages essentially, "You're not sick enough," said Blake. To me, that's absurd, because when is the right time to process your own death? Is it 6 months before you die? 4 months before? And again, he's got a good point. I mean, this is a dying man who could die literally at any time.
Yeah, exactly. But not only that, he's suffering from life debilitating anxiety because he's facing his imminent death at any time.
Right.
And because of that, from what I can gather from reading from the story, is his wife has probably taken the brunt of a lot of his anger outbursts that he's probably
Absolutely,
having.
because
And he
that's
probably
generally
feels
what
horrible
happens.
for it, right?
Yeah.
But this is what he's going through. Like the guy's like, yeah, we're all dying. Every day that we live is one less day that we all have to live. But this guy's been given a definitive time and he's already passed it.
Right. So that clock is ticking in his brain. Like, when is it going to happen? Right.
Yeah.
Creating more anxiety. And of course, that creates more problems in his personal life, which then in turn is going to create more anxiety. And I find it absolutely disgusting that, he isn't allowed to make a choice about his treatment after other treatments have failed. But yet, if you were pregnant and wanted a C-section for no actual medical reason, did you know that here in Canada, that's your right?
Yep.
So you can have an invasive, high-risk procedure done for no medical need, but you can't choose to use some mushrooms, which has zero risks in the sense of your life could end, and can only possibly make it better. How does that make sense?
It's got to come down to money.
It does.
It has to.
They don't get paid for you having a trip and getting better. There's no code like you can with a C-section. Punch that in. How much does that doctor get paid to have a child C-sectioned out of someone at the hospital? Right. So again, I think that's what this is. This is about money.
The cost of my medications I used to be on annual cost, $50,000. And because I'm on disability, my disability program pays for that.
Right.
So they paid $50,000 every year for my medications. They're not paying anything now.
Right. Because you solved your own problems.
Right.
With natural therapies. And again, now there's no money in it for them because you're better. So, right.
And this story gets better or not as we go on, because there's another option available to this gentleman, which doesn't take very long to get approved for. But anyways, I'll carry on here. We'll get to that in the story here. According to data from Health Canada, 525 requests for psilocybin were made through the Special Access Program from January 1st, 2022 to February 25th, 2026. Of those, 338, 64% were authorized. The majority of authorized requests were for depression. 28% were specifically for end-of-life distress. So 28%. Okay, so 28% of the ones who were authorized were for end-of-life distress. So that's a significant amount that's there. But I don't know. In a statement to CBC, Health Canada says it has great compassion and understanding for individuals diagnosed with end-of-life anxiety and depression. The story goes on here to say, here's the next part. MAID approved in 3 weeks. For those who don't know what MAID is, it is government or doctor-assisted, medically assisted suicide. So it's medically assisted.
Medical assistance in dying.
Yes, medical assistance in dying. So with the help of a doctor through our medical system and all that. Now, I'm not going to weigh in my personal opinions on it. I'm just going to read the story on it. If you want to delve into anything, feel free. But it goes on here to say, Pete says the 9-month wait just made me a wreck. I was getting worse and worse, panic attacks and everything else because of these dummies at Health Canada. Pete's worsening physical symptoms and mental distress prompted him to apply for MAID. Oh, he actually did apply. in early fall 2025 after he says his doctors told him dying from IPF is the worst way you can go, just gasping for air. That application was approved in 3 weeks.
Right.
MAID and Health Canada's SAP are governed under different and legal clinical criteria. Wow. Still, when he found out, Pete says he couldn't believe that he spent a year fighting the government to try psilocybin, and then they say, we can kill you faster.
Right. That had to been infuriating for him.
Right.
Right. Like, well, we can take you out of the world in 3 weeks, but we don't want you to try psilocybin, which we took 9 months or more to let you know. Again, I think there's an imbalance somewhere in the processing of these applications. It should not take 9 months to process an application for something like this when you can be approved to have your life ended in 3 weeks. That's disgusting. That's just my take on it. Those who choose to go through MAID, that's their personal decision. But I think you're being railroaded into doing it when you have other options that could be more beneficial in the grand scheme of things. So, this world is a messed up place.
I will weigh in on this. So if by someone refusing to take pharmaceuticals and not pumping money into that side of things, right? You're if you're a burden on the healthcare system because you're getting sicker, because you're still waiting for your natural medication, your natural medicine approval for that, but yet you don't want to take pharmaceuticals, so you're getting sicker. So now you're more of a burden. So we're going to approve the MAID, so you're now no longer a liability cost to us.
Right. And think about it this way. MAID, again, is a billable healthcare code for which those doctors get paid. And again, there are, and I can't confirm this because I don't have an actual link, but let's face it, anyone who signs up for MAID is asked if they want to donate their organs, which again are billable codes.
Right.
They're making money off of you leaving this world. When they're not giving you reasonable access to other things that may otherwise help you. I think this is completely wrong. MAID should always be a last resort. We should be doing our due diligence and trying to actually help people, not take them out of this world.
Right.
Yeah. So psychedelics, not ready for prime time, psychiatrist says. Dr. Joshua Rosenblatt, a psychiatrist at University Health Network in Toronto, applied for SAP access to psilocybin for his patients so many times that Health Canada recommended he launch a clinical trial. So he did. The results published in 2024 showed psilocybin had significant antidepressant effects when combined with psychotherapy. Now he has seven separate clinical trials underway for psilocybin and depression, all federally funded. Rosenblatt led Canada's first national consensus statement on psychedelics in 2022, which he says made very clear that they're not ready for prime time yet. Through millions in funding for clinical trials like his may be moving psilocybin in that direction. Rosenblatt said it shouldn't be used to treat people for depression or end-of-life distress until we have more evidence. While he acknowledges that psilocybin is readily available, he doesn't recommend his patients use it on their own because of its unpredictable nature. In his clinical trials, Rosenblatt said side effects occur close to 100% of the time, mostly during the actual psychedelic treatment or trip. Physical symptoms may include changes in body temperature, nausea, shortness of breath, and heightened blood pressure, while psychological side effects included heightened anxiety, panic, fear, and even suicidality. This that's also why Rosenblatt said it's essential that a mental health professional be present to help. Well, I don't agree with all his statements, but
No, I don't know. I don't agree 100% with him on things, but
yeah.
Pete's eventful trip. The morning of January 3rd, Pete's psychotherapist and an additional sitter arrived at his home for his treatment, where he prepared and drank a tea made from the mushrooms he'd procured. After the therapist and sitter helped him to the bathroom because the floor was moving, as Pete recalls, they also recorded the whole trip and made a transcript he could read later. Pete's 8-hour trip was a powerful recap of his life. He visited his whole family, including his late parents and favorite grandmother, as well as childhood neighbors and friends. But most meaningfully, he also saw his late son, Andrew, who died as a baby. And again, there's Pete right there, putting a face to the story. Throughout the trip, Pete also repeated the phrase, "Let it go." That means let go of all my ugliness, my being ticked off at the world. And, poor Pete, useless son of a gun. I can't do anything, he explained. I was trying to get all that evil stuff out of me. Pete's wife, Susan, was blown away at how effective it was. He has had no signs of any kind of depression since. Blake wishes his dad's experience could have happened sooner, but knowing that it helped him relax and brought him peace was just the best gift ever. That's such an awesome story to hear.
Right. It doesn't sound like he had any major side effects, like the doctor was saying. So again, is some of that propaganda? Is that, at the end of the day, this is a 75-year-old man who's never tripped on anything, and he went and took 5 grams of psilocybin at home by himself, and he came out okay.
Right.
He came out better than okay.
I know there's another little blurb here at the end here, but I can oh shoot, what was I gonna say? You know what? I can't remember. I don't want to hold up the story. So anyways, you can continue on if you wish.
Yeah, enjoying the little things. Pete had a follow-up session with his psychotherapist several weeks after his treatment when they went over what happened. Neither thinks other psilocybin treatment is necessary. These days, Pete says he's enjoying what he can do rather than cursing what he can't. I can't believe how good I feel for being a sick person that's supposed to be dying. Now that his end of life distress has been resolved, Pete intends to use mead when his difficulty breathing gets to be too much to bear. But for now, he says that thanks to the psilocybin, I'm back in the groove. So I am hoping I can stay there for as long as I can. See, it changed his entire outlook.
Exactly.
Right.
So it seems to me like even if it was tomorrow that his breathing got worse and he found it unbearable,
he's okay with it.
He would be okay with it and satisfied with knowing that he's reflected on his whole past life and he's okay with everything.
Yeah.
And we've heard that from someone who was a regular person.
Thomas Hartle.
He's passed on now, and but his end of life anxiety was gone to the point where he became an advocate for this.
And he lived years beyond what they had told him he would. And again, because he did natural therapies and did these treatments, he got much more out of life in the end. And he was okay. He knew his day was coming and he was okay with that. And he used to laugh and joke about it, where most people would have, cowered at that thought, or been a wreck over it. And at one time he was. But natural psilocybin therapy made the biggest difference in his world and gave his family peace of mind through those years that he was going to be okay. even when
Yep.
that time came.
Yeah. I remember I followed him along. I've seen his interviews on Open Your Eye and
Yes.
such with you and Kim. I've also seen some interviews where he's been, I think it was through Therapsil.
Yes, he was involved with Therapsil quite
Yeah.
closely. Yes.
Yeah. So I followed that along, his story quite closely at that time, and unfortunately, he's passed on now. Am I freezing up, or is that
No.
Tara? Okay, I think you're just your screen's frozen on my side. But, I'm getting Starlink.
Good.
So it's my speeds should be much better in about a month's time. So, anyways, yeah. So, man, and again, rest in peace, Thomas Hartle, and and I'm so glad that this guy here, Pete, what was his name? I don't want to forget his name. Pete Pearson, Susan and Pete Pearson. So I think it would be cool if Kim could be able to find some way of contacting them and have them on as guests.
Absolutely. I'm going to mention that.
And even their son, who's a family doctor himself, who's witnessed his own father. Literally.
And kudos for him recommending it to his father, because it sounds like that was kind of how this came about, was that he had read some literature about how it was helping patients and therefore brought it to his father.
Right? Exactly. And it's
Congrats
from CBC.
to that doctor.
It's from CBC. So I'm definitely going to listen to that. I don't know what the that white coat black art magic mushrooms for end of life distress video is going to be about, but I'm going to definitely take a look and see. But I love these kind of stories like this.
Me too.
Because both of us have been in places where we've experienced how these plants can change us. And when we see someone else, when we see that thing happen to someone else, that's such an amazing thing to see.
Absolutely, it is.
But what's not amazing is to see our government, our medical system restricting access to what works.
For sure.
So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add on before.
No, I think that's about it. I mean, as patients, we should have the right to choose the treatment that works for us. I don't think that mental health care is a one-fits-all solution. And I think that patients should have the right to choose their medicine just the same as patients can choose to have an invasive C-section for no valid medical reason other than convenience. So, when we're talking about safety and efficiency and things being okay, why can we not have that choice just the same as someone can choose a medical procedure or not, right?
100%.
Make it make sense. We have to advocate for ourselves and for others. And I'm glad that people like him are stepping out and advocating, especially at his age. At 75, that can't be easy. But kudos on him for taking 5 grams. That would have been
right. Yeah. I was expecting, I didn't read the whole story. I had no idea he took 5 grams. I'm thinking he did like a gram or whatever, right? And I've done about 1.5 grams of like penis envy. To me, that's still a microdose for me.
Yeah.
I haven't tried what my limits are. But I'm happy with the 1.5 grams type of thing as a microdose for me. But my tolerances are quite high. So it's not surprising with that. But I love seeing stories like that, especially with someone his age. And I was completely surprised when we were reading the story, it was 5 grams.
Yeah.
So wow. So anyways, anyone else watching out there that may be struggling with some of the similar things, there is hope out there. all you got to do is, if you can't get it through the legal source, know your resources, ask around, and trust where you get the stuff from. Don't just
Absolutely.
get it from anyone where you can. Just be safe, be smart.
Yeah, research is key.
Exactly. So anyways, I guess that brings us to the end of the show. We're not going to do those other two little stories. I had a feeling this story would take the whole second half of the show. I think it was great to focus on that.
Well worth it.
Well worth it. And I do really hope Kim is able to find these people and have them on. Open
Same.
your eye. It would be an amazing episode that could probably benefit thousands of people who watch it. So in closing, I just want to thank you all for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network, and for tuning into our video podcast on NOK Network, Rumble, and I guess it's Kim's YouTube page on which is now branded under NOK Network, as well as our social media sites.
That's right, folks. We hope you enjoyed your update today on mainstream media coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements from around the globe.
And many thanks to our sponsors. Don't forget to check them out. And to joint hosts, Tara Simpson right over here, and Bufo. Let's not forget Bufo for making this show possible. And to you, our listeners, for joining us here each week on Psychedelic Tuesdays. So let's hear from Dead Ringer once again from Kirkland Lake, Ontario, on our way out. And Hobbies Puppets will return back next week, next Tuesday, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time with Tara Simpson here. I've filled in for Hobbies this week, and so you get. I guess it's usually Todd the Gorilla and Mel the Mushroom on.
Yeah, and sometimes he surprises us with someone new.
Great. So, and for anyone who don't know what I'm talking about, I guess you're just going to have to tune in next Tuesday to meet the puppets, Hobbies Puppets. So, cheers, everyone, and good night and peace.
I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty